Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to call to order the Community Development Commission of Albany, Oregon. It's Monday, February 5th. And staff, would you please conduct a roll call?
Commissioner Stubbs.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson II. Commissioner Tim.
Here.
Commissioner Cole.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Robledo. And Commissioner Dean.
Okay. Thank you. The first order of agenda is to approve the minutes from our January 22nd meeting. Does anyone have any suggested changes from those minutes as written? Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? I have a second. All those in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Okay. For scheduled business, I'll turn it over to staff.
So we will be continuing with our agency presentations. And before we begin that, I just want to put on the record that Emma Dean has recused herself from discussing the Albany Helping Hands and Chance applications due to conflict of interest. That's out in the open. But first, we will have Dawn Sparks with Albany Helping Hands come up and present. And as a reminder, you have 4 minutes to present, and then we'll allow for questions.
Okay. My name is Don Sparks. I'm the Executive Director of Albany Helping Hands. Thank you for allowing me to present today. This is a request for our community development block grant funds. Last year was a big year for Albany Helping Hands. We celebrated our 25th anniversary as an officially registered nonprofit. The Department of Justice investigation closed with some counsel on some charges and improvements, approved on some changes and improvements we should make in our processes, and some very encouraging words. I quote, Albany Helping Hands provides beneficial services to the city of Albany and the surrounding population. The department wishes Albany Helping Hands the best in its efforts and hopes it continues to be a valuable resource to its community. It is to this last statement that I want to speak. Our mission from the beginning has been to serve homeless people. We've gone from giving out free sandwiches in the park to housing and feeding around 100 people every day who would otherwise be homeless. During Albany Helping Hands' 25 years of operation, we have essentially been a people warehouse. And by that, I mean that we have worked with our residents to help them obtain valuable documents, connect with social services, and get registered for housing assistance, seek and receive medical and mental health care, etc. And what we have not done in any kind of consistent or organized way is help our residents grow. They are by and large the same people when they leave the shelter as they were when they arrived. As an organization that believes that God has a plan and purpose for every person, our goal moving forward is to see people grow in understanding and capacity while they're with us. We want to provide intentional enrichment programs for our residents so they will be able to be more positive about their life prospects, able to deal more effectively with life challenges and they will face, and be able to make positive contributions to the community. Because of the variation of our population, this is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. We have 3 broad categories of residents. The first, working age, able-bodied adults. These are people who are employable, and we want to help prepare them for successful work outside the shelter. Our second group are residents with physical and or mental limitations that typically leave them unable to work full-time, except in rare circumstances, but with the right support, may be able to find a part-time position that fits their unique giftings. And the third group are residents that are not capable of working due to physical or mental limitations, and those who have aged out of the workforce. For those in Group 1 and some of Group 2, modules on what employers are looking for and how to communicate on the job, punctuality, working with a team, resume building, and interview preparation. In addition, all of our residents should be able to benefit from a series of personal development classes, including a model process for making good choices. Budgeting, goal setting, communication skills, conflict resolution, basic computer skills, how to be a good renter, even reading and writing skills for some. Since many of the people who come to us have histories or are currently wrestling with substance abuse, I'd like to incorporate a module designed to support recovery and sobriety. I think one of the things this means is that we likely will be collaborating with other agencies who have the programming we are looking for that is already operational. There are many options, but it takes someone dedicated to intentionally design one program that can address the situations of all three of these groups. We don't need to reinvent the wheel in all these areas, but we do need to design a wheel that fits our population and needs. That is why we're requesting this grant to help fund a pathway to independence designer and manager. Once the program design reaches the point where we can begin operationalizing it, we definitely will need a manager to oversee all the moving parts and interagency relations, track resident participation and progress, and evaluate effectiveness and revise as warranted. Once our pathway to independence
Thank you,
program
Don.
is designed.
I'm going to turn it over to questions now. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
So all good information, but
I read faster.
Questions? Yeah, I have one question. So you're obviously faith-based organization. Sounds like you do some great work out there. How do you separate the faith portion of your mission from the helping? Do you draw a hard line between the religious aspect of your work and the humane aspect of your work?
Good question. We have no requirements for faith or participation in any faith activities. I will tell you that before meals, not on a regularly scheduled basis, but frequently we'll offer a before meal prayer. But that is done before the meal service starts. So no one has to wait for a meal. I don't tell them to be quiet. I just say, I'm going to do this. And then I do it. With this program, we don't have any required classes, no chapels, that sort of thing. So what we do require is civil behavior and language. And so that I think is not necessarily entirely religious in its outworking. And I would guess that we will have optional courses for people interested in pursuing more about religious information and knowledge.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question.
I have a question.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was going to say, in your history, say the last couple of years, how long has the longest time that a person's been there? Can they stay there forever is what I'm trying to ask. Or do you move them out, circulate them? How do you work that?
That is a good question, and it's a challenging proposition that we face. I've been there less than a year and a half, and my sources tell me that we have some residents that have been there a decade, some maybe a little more, and several a little less. So that is one of the reasons for this change in program, so that we can begin to focus on a better motivational model, I guess, for people to be able to move on. Now, some of our people don't have anywhere else to go. They are not capable mentally of functioning in independent living, and we haven't so far been able to find them a place where they can receive care. They seem to be comfortable with us, and so our choice is give them a deadline to do something or leave, or just continue to treat them as a real life person and take care of them, provide for them. But that is a challenge. So to use a carrot or a stick to get people to move on. I've told people that I want us to be a pipeline where things continue to move, not a reservoir, which is what we have been. But people need to stay as long as they need to stay. And so once they come to us, unless they have a place to go, we're not going to kick them out.
How many beds do you have?
How many beds?
Mhm.
In the dormitory part of the shelter, we have 92, 60 men and 94, 34 for the women. And in our 3 transitional houses, we have 15 additional. And in the Bailey home, there are 4 rooms for 4 mothers and children that can hold up to 10 total. So,
Was there an additional question over here?
Question. You mentioned partnering with other agencies for substance addictions and substance abuse kinds of problems. Do you have a similar plan for mental health challenges, or do you see bringing inside some services to help with mental health challenges?
I'm sorry that my comments pushed those together. I wasn't speaking just of mental health issues to partner with other agencies. I was thinking of all the things on the list. Other places are doing some of those like good renter classes. I think there's one in town that has that. And I would, in addition to our partnership with Ideal Option, who is now operating on campus, we also have a Narcotics Anonymous group that meets on campus once a week. I'm open to connecting with all the services and providers and resources that we can to help support our people. I guess gain victory over the things that are plaguing them, or to develop new skills and things to interact with the world around them.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Mayor, did you have a question?
Yeah, yes, I do. Thank you. I apologize for being late. I run a business, so something overlapped. As far as cost of care, are these people contributing to, are the people that live there contributing to the cost of their being there?
At the present time, no.
So if they receive like state benefits or federal benefits, they don't pay anything to help offset the cost of their care?
We have not charged them. There's some, I haven't fully figured out how our relationship with Food Share is, but Food Share is very adamant that no one pay anything for any food or meals that they serve. And when I've asked them about some other issues, I'm under the impression that they don't want us to charge anyone for anything if they're feeding at the shelter. So I think one thing that I'm looking at in this program is to have everyone in an intentional progression that will involve, I think, at least a proposal of funding from some of those residents. I know other places will bill food stamps for people. We can't do that because we get a lot of our food from Food Share. And so to make that transition to be totally independent and then be able to have people contribute to their support is an unknown expense that I'm not sure if we had to get all of our own food directly in the market.
What I'm asking is because if they're contributing to the cost of staying there, maybe not the food, but staying there,
Yeah.
it might be an intention to, it might motivate them to seek more permanent housing.
I have thought the exact same thing. So that's one of the things that we're working on to try to make a transition.
I know Teen Challenge has a model where you have to work where you're there to help offset costs. And then my uncle was in a place down in the Bay Area, and he had to use his masonry skills to pay for part of his. So the nonprofit had projects that they would do for community members and businesses and churches, and he had to go lay tile. He had to pour concrete to be part of that program. So he was there for 2 years, and it worked out quite well for him.
Our staffing issues have been a little chaotic in the last year, and so I'm trying to get those straightened out so that we can have the people that we need to help us review our program. And right now, we require 30 hours a week of input from the people that live there. Many of them aren't capable of working, and right now we haven't had someone to, I guess, manage that process. And so there's a lot of loose ends, and this is all tied into a tightening up of everything that we're doing, so that we get people, in today's world, is 30 hours realistic? And yeah, so we're working on that, and thank you for bringing
Thank
that
you.
up.
I appreciate your response.
you.
I have a question. If you had to estimate, what percentage, rough estimate of the clients you serve, you're serving because of like addiction related issues?
A lot. I would just say a lot. And because addiction related issues, do you mean that they're homeless now because drugs drove them out of their life from before? Or
Just addiction being the primary cause from them being, a functional member of society and thus, needing help,
I think
whether it be drugs or alcohol or.
drugs have probably played some role in, I would say, at least 80%
Wow.
of the people that are there. And sometimes drugs and mental illness are intertwined, and you don't know which started which or which is contributing. That doesn't mean that we're a high barrier shelter, so none of the people that are there are actively using drugs, at least that we know of, and we do our best to try to maintain that. But we have a certain number that are in and then they're out because they know that we don't allow active drug use, and they've decided they want to try that some more. So they'll go out and we won't see them for a few months. And then they'll be back. And as long as they can pass the urine analysis, then we let people in. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to move us to the next presenter, but thank you, Don.
thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don.
So then we have Tia DeVersa and Mary Zelinka with CARDVA here.
All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tia DeVersa. I'm the grants coordinator at CARDVA, and I'm here with Mary Zelinka, the facilities manager. I'm just going to give a quick overview of CARDVA and our services, and then I'll turn it over to Mary for more project-related information. We are a survivor services agency. We've been around since 1981. We serve all survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, and stalking in both Lynn and Benton counties. We provide essential life-saving services like emergency shelter, on-scene crisis response in tandem with local law enforcement. We have a 24/7 confidential hotline, and we also provide basic needs assistance and housing stability assistance, as well as prevention-based anti-violence curriculum to middle and high school students. We are here today to request CDBG support for a construction project where we are building a fence around our newest confidential shelter. And I'll turn it over to Mary for more information.
Hi, I'm Mary Zelinka, and I'm the facilities manager at CARDVA. And I've been at CARDVA this May, it'll be 34 years I've been on the staff, and I was involved in the 1980s as a volunteer. So I've seen us grow a lot. And we've purchased a house last year to be used as a confidential shelter in Lynn County. And we're very excited about this. We've wanted a confidential shelter here since 1981, basically. And this will be our third confidential shelter. And we're hoping to open it this summer. That's our goal. We've got most of the remodeling done, and there's just a few things that need to be done for us to open it up. And one of those things is a fence around the backyard. And it has a wooden fence now, but it's mostly rotting and needs to be removed and changed. And so what we're looking for is a 6-foot-high, either chain link with privacy slats or vinyl. We haven't decided which yet. We've only gotten one estimate so far, but if we're awarded the grant, we'll of course get 3 or 4 estimates and have a better idea of what we want. Personally, I'm leaning towards the chain link with the privacy slats. And this is vital to all of our residents are in fear for their lives. And so not just their physical safety, but their psychological safety is really important. And nobody is going to let their kids outside in the backyard unless it's fenced and unless it's, really, really private. So we see this as really a critical piece to be able to open up our shelter in Lynn County. Do you all have questions?
So approximately how many lineal feet is the fence?
How many beds are they?
Lineal feet how long is the fence?
Oh, I don't have that with me. When I didn't bring that number with me. It's going to go, the person I had come out and walk it off, it's going to go, on the side up to the house and then the backyard, and then just a short piece in the front to make it blend in with the neighborhood. But it wouldn't be 6 feet high in the front yard.
Just the back would have.
It's a
6
big
foot.
yard.
It is, okay.
How many people will be sheltered there?
We're looking at one bedroom would have 4 beds, and all these could, we could add cribs to any of these rooms, but one room would have 4 beds, one room would have 2 beds, and one room would have 1 bed. So that's a total of 7 beds. And that could be a mix. That could be 2 families and a single person. It could be 1 family with a lot of kids. It could be, we're very flexible.
Yeah, based on our 2023 calendar year numbers, we're estimating between 30 and 45 survivors in shelter over the first year.
The other things we would need besides the fence would be at our other 2 shelters in Corvallis, we installed through a CDBG grant in Corvallis, we installed, they're called individual keypad deadbolts on each of the resident rooms. So, you can put in their code for them, and then they can lock their bedrooms. Because, we have a communal living area, but each room, they don't share a room with another person. Everybody has their own room with them and their children. And so the keypads give them a little bit more sense of privacy and safety because they can lock their room. So that's something that we would definitely want in this shelter as well.
Oh, thank you. Do these properties have security systems?
Oh, yes,
And
yes.
cameras and monitoring?
Yeah. All of our facilities have security system, for intruder as well as fire. They're all,
Sure.
everything's all connected.
I was thinking in terms of
And we have
cameras
cameras, and we
monitoring
have
the
security
outside.
cameras.
Question, is it like company policy or code related or something that if for some reason you weren't get to funds, would this prevent you from opening that house up? Like you couldn't allow anybody in there if you don't build the fence?
Great question.
We wouldn't.
You would not open it?
No, we won't. And so it's something, if we don't get the grant, we'll have to look for funds elsewhere. It's just, it's hard. I mean, in the olden days, like back in the 80s, we probably would have done that, maybe even in the early 90s. But we've reached a point where if people don't feel safe coming in, they're not going to be successful, while they're there. It's hard to, it's hard to find a place to live, find a job, find childcare for your kids, all the things, our residents need to do to build new lives if they don't feel safe.
Thank you.
So it is really critical.
Do you currently have a waiting list?
Pardon me?
Do you currently have a waiting list?
No, we don't keep waiting lists as such. I mean, we have people, if we can't house somebody, then we will network them somewhere else. We can utilize motels. And so we do that too. Like if we know that that a room is going to open up, we may house somebody in a motel for a night or 2. But we don't keep a waiting list as such. There's we always have a list of people who might come in. They might call us. And so we have a plan to take care of that should they call us if we're full. But we don't keep a waiting list.
And right now, your opening time for the shelter is July of 2025, correct?
Pardon me?
The opening time for the shelter is July of 2025?
We hope so, yeah.
But you've got a year, you got over almost a year and a half to get that fence.
Yeah, so I think we're trying to open it in 2024. On our application, we put July 2025 as the latest, trying to account for weather with fence construction and just ensuring that we gave ourselves a little bit of wiggle room with that.
And do keep in mind that the funding will not be available until July 1st at the earliest. So the fence could not be constructed before then.
Right. But in the years that I've been the project manager on CDBG grants in Corvallis, they have the same thing where funds wouldn't be available until a certain time, but you knew you were awarded at earlier than that. And so, I could arrange with contract, go ahead and get all the estimates and everything and arrange with somebody, so they've got a slot for us in their schedule. And so we've had a history of being able to get things done, very, very quickly.
Yeah, that would work. I just want to make sure that we're
Yeah.
all on the same page about
Yeah.
you can get all your ducks in a row, but nothing can happen until the environmental review, the funding's approved by HUD. Yeah, but that's the same. We use the same model where you would know in advance if you were awarded funds. So
Chair?
Yes.
Beth, I have a question for Beth. Since the property's actually in Albany, correct?
Pardon me?
Is the property in Albany? The one in question, is it in Albany?
Yes.
It is. So could we put a stipulation that, Albany contractors are preferred, or is that against the rules?
I don't know that there's a specific rule about that, but there is a preference for minority owned disability veterans and women-owned businesses. So that is something that we would work with them to make sure that they're soliciting bids from any contractors that would fit those qualifications, and that is part of HUD's.
Okay, thank you. The reason I asked because if we were doing a project in Albany, it'd be nice to have somebody in Albany build it, right? Instead of somebody from Lynn or Benton County coming over to Albany to build something, unless they met one of those protected categories.
Sure, I agree with that in concept. We could explore trying to look at some Albany contractors, but there's usually a variety of factors that are being considered, like cost, schedule, do they meet one of the other disadvantaged business enterprise qualifications. So
That answers my question.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming in.
So next I will welcome up Jennifer Thielander with Chance.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Jennifer Thielander. I am the grants and fundraising specialist at Chance. I've been here since October. I'm very excited to talk to you about our application today. So an overview of Chance, we used to be mostly a recovery center. Since 2021, we've really taken on the role of being a leader in providing services to people experiencing substance use disorder, mental health, and houselessness. In 2021, we serve the Tri-Counties, Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln counties. We have day use offices in each of the counties with additional services catered toward different counties. So we have a house in Lebanon where that's a women's house that people can live in, and then they have day services. We have harm reduction services in Benton County, and then we have housing services in all three counties where we provide motel vouchers, and we have a family home in Philomath. So each office in each county is a little bit different. We also have, in 2021, we acquired the Signs of Victory shelter in Albany and we turned it around. So it was an unsafe place. Our community partners asked us to come and rehab it and take it over. And since then, we've been running it pretty smoothly, and we're opening 42 new beds this month. So we're really excited about that. We provide peer support services in each one of our offices. We provide housing services in each one of our offices as well, although those look a little bit different in each office. So some of them are like direct placement into hotels. Some of them is just counseling on how to, independently look for housing and stuff like that. We do peer support services can include transportation to and from appointments. It can include recovery mentorship. It could include, connection to meetings. It can include like family services and just, connection to other health services and other services. Our Albany office in the last 2 years, I'm really excited about, has acquired, we've got a partnership where we have a dental hygienist that comes in and does cleanings and does preventative measures. And we're also getting ready to start offering a dentist twice a month. So we're really excited about that. We're trying to bring as many services to where people already are. So we're trying to sort of be a one-stop shop. In the distant future, we also hope to bring in some mental health assistance, so bringing in a doctor to help people. We are low barrier. So that means that we do have people in active use, an active mental health crisis coming into our spaces. So we, and they're allowed to utilize our services as long as they abide by our code of conduct, they don't disrupt people and things like that. It's actually a really great opportunity for our peer supports, even if someone is in active use, to make a connection with that person. They might not be ready for recovery right now, but they're going to remember that time that someone came to them when they were at their lowest. So, and we consider people coming into our office as a call for help. So we also serve hot meals at our Albany office twice a day. We serve meals at the shelter, and we're starting to serve meals in the Corvallis office. Our proposal for the block grant is to do some construction on the church. We were gifted. Sometimes a gift is not really a gift. So we were gifted the oldest church in Albany. It's the Methodist Episcopal Church that was built in 1875. It's on the corner. It's 238 Southeast 3rd Avenue, right by our office. We used to operate out of that church. So in addition to that church being an important piece of Albany history, it's an important piece of Chance's history. We have people that are now peer support specialists that work for Chance that used to get services from Chance at that church. Right now, the church needs siding done on the outside. There's birds living in the siding. We need to have an ADA ramp so people can access it if they're on wheelchairs or if they have mobility issues. And we need to put the steeple on the church, so it's without a steeple. But we do have that. We've been kind of slowly but surely making improvements on it. So the steeple's ready to be put on. We did lay whatever foundation you need for the steeple. That's in place.
Okay,
So
thank you. Sorry,
Oh,
I hate
sorry.
to interrupt, but I'm going to open it up for
Okay.
questions now. Thank you.
Is the steeple just a requirement for the historic nature of the building? I
Yes.
see. Okay.
You currently, it sounds like 300,000, 350,000 that you have tentative funding for. Could you talk more about that?
Yes, we've applied for other funding. We've applied for money from Spirit Mountain Casino Fund. We also have some other pending general operating grants that we are waiting to hear back from. I've only been at the office since October. They've only had a bona fide grant writer since October. So we've got quite a few pending grants that we're waiting for. We also are working on individual fundraising. So we're working on, we are going to be doing a campaign. Once we get some of the big grants solidified, then we'll do a public, save the church sort of campaign. But we've got Spirit Mountain Casino. We've got a general operating from the Reeser Center or Reeser Family Foundation. And then we're also looking into applying for the SHPO grant for the historic preservation.
So you mentioned in the application that there's the possibility of income from this facility over time. Could you elaborate a little bit on that, or do you have estimates on that?
We don't have estimates on it, but so right now, our main office, we are serving 11 to 12 community meetings that have nothing to do with Chance every week. So that's like NA meetings, AA meetings, other kinds of meetings. And we do get small sums from some of those. But we also have more and more organizations wanting to have meetings at our space. So if we can also utilize the church for those meetings and not have them in our office where there's confidential information and things like that, we're trying to move all of those meetings over to the church. We also get a lot of requests for recovery events. So this is like a community building space. So we're looking for a place to have funerals. Unfortunately, low-cost funerals, they don't exist. So it was funny, the day that I submitted the grant for this grant, I had someone reach out to me looking for a funeral space for someone that had been in recovery at Chance. And she said he had passed somewhere else. It was her ex-husband. And she said, we couldn't think of a better place for his funeral or his celebration of life than to be at the last place that he was happy and in recovery in Albany at Chance. So there's a huge demand for people to have celebrations of life. So that would be something where we could charge a small fee for that. Mixers and other sorts of social events for people in recovery spaces. There's a high demand for that as well. So we're looking for it to be more of a social place for people in recovery, that they can be safe, they can connect with other people, and then they can, kind of not be alone. That's the big thing that drives people toward continuing usage and not seeking out recovery. And then, getting worse and worse is when they're alone.
Questions?
Yes, the church is going through landmarks as well, correct? Our landmarks committee? Because it's a historic resource, correct?
Landmarks Committee?
It's on the historic register.
So are you working with landmarks on your proposals and your designs and stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we've already worked with some of that when we did the initial work on whatever it's called to build the steeple on top of. So the person that we work with, or that works for Chance, that does all of our building maintenance and everything, the idea is that everything will be restored to historical accuracy as best as we can.
Thank you.
Okay, and no other questions? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there we go. Okay. So you'll be serving clients in the building. I think that's a key connection for us. I mean, it's providing community support, just trying to figure out the eligibility and sort of breaking stuff down within your budget. But it sounded like there were some counselors there. I mean, besides being a community center, how will the building be used?
Thank you for asking. So we're going to use it for, like I said, we'll use our community partners, be able to have meetings, like people that are hosting meetings and things like that. We will use it. Another way we'll use it as an event space for our events. We'll use it as the kitchen is a place where we can have extra storage for our shelter and things like that. We also will use it as an emergency space. So when we need to do outreach and meals, like for when we had the ice storms and stuff, we were working overtime to make sure that people had meals and things like that. So in addition to people coming to our shelter, they can come and get bagged meals and things like that when we're having extreme weather or things like that. We also will use it as an outreach space. So right now, COAT is also using it. They have offices there. And we will be able to also use the space they kind of came in and are using it before Chance kind of went through its transformation over the pandemic. So they're kind of just like in a downstairs office space, but we'll use it as well for peer recovery, it'll be kind of an extension of our existing programming space.
Thank you. Is there a way to sort of separate out the ADA improvements and the architectural costs? The reason why I bring this up is because any one CDBG dollar 1 cent will cause the whole project to be subject to all of the regulations around CDBG, which will really greatly increase your costs. So I'm trying to think of, we don't have $400,000. I mean, you asked for $100,000, but if we could sort of pull out, and this is something we can talk about later. I mean, this is a great project, but thinking about just the ADA accessibility as a separate project that isn't going to possibly taint the restoration of the
Yeah.
church.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because actually, since we turned in the application, we have sort of we've talked about revisiting the ramp portion of it. And we're actually thinking that instead of putting the ramp on the front, we want to put it on the back door. So we do need to have that conversation anyway about, is that what you,
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how to make this as simple as possible for all parties involved, from the environmental review to actually not causing your budget to increase. And then you'd have, these monies might be a wash if it causes your project to go up by 20%. So I'm just trying to be strategic, and we can move on to other applicants, but we're trying to make sure it fits well within the CDBG program guidelines and figuring out the best fit, which is some of what I think Beth worked with you guys before submitting the application. But that may just be something, if you're able to do it before they start making decisions, that might be helpful in our review. Or their
yeah,
review.
we're open to that conversation. And this is going to be, this is going to be a long, project. So really get it to where we exactly want it to be. Right now, we're hoping in the next 2 years, we can sort of like make it look nice from the outside, and we could do our basic programming. We have big plans for the long-term future. So if we need to, switch things around a little bit, we're open to that.
Thank you. I don't want to take up more time. Thanks.
I just have one really quick follow-on question. For your partners that utilize your facility meeting spaces, do you have requirements for diversity, equity, inclusion? In other words, are you vetting them to make sure they're not, anti-LGTB or anything like that from a partner standpoint?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't run the, agreements for those meetings. So that's a really good question. I don't know. We're not faith-based. We have the signs all over our center that's like, everyone is welcome here. So I would assume that, our executive director and the people that are making those decisions wouldn't partner with people that are, not inclusive, but I can't tell you for sure that we have like a statement or anything like that. But it's definitely something we should have if we don't.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Luis Mendoza with Dev Northwest, and he is joining us online.
Thank you, Beth. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Awesome. So my name is Luis. I'm the asset building manager at Dev Northwest. I oversee our realtor department, our community land trust homes, our down payment assistance program, and our rehab department. We at Dev Northwest, so I've been at Dev Northwest for about 10 years. The organization as a whole has been in our communities for about 46 years, and we provide several resources and programs. I'm going to do a quick run through and then focus on the one that our application applies to give you a little bit of background here. So we spend a lot of time on homeownership education and counseling. We have HUD approved counselors that go over the home buying process. We do a lot of work around the foreclosure. We're one of 2 agencies that does the foreclosure work in the state of Oregon. We do youth housing work, our down payment assistance programs, and then we also provide a couple of developments that are in the works for our community land trust homes that are getting built and that we're in the process of selling. And then we do a lot around the rehab work. We've been over the past 16 years doing rehabilitation of homes that current homeowners in our community live in, and we've been able to distribute over $8 million over that course of that time frame. And the work that goes into the rehab that we're going in and looking at is really the major components of a home. So we're looking at helping families repair a leaky roof. We're looking at upgrading windows, changing out siding that has either rotted or is on the verge of no longer creating, keeping the elements out of the home. We help families with HVAC, really think about the home and a lot of these big ticket items, a lot of these things that a lot of our families who are limited in income aren't able to do the repair and maintenance of those. Let's see. Our goal is to help families keep and have a safe home. We know that we currently have a housing crisis, and hardworking low and moderate income homeowners of Albany are having a tough choice between having to make a mortgage payment and fixing that leaky roof that potentially might be at play. And so these type of programs have a significant impact on these families that oftentimes they have to make some tough decisions on whether it goes towards a home or whether it's to provide for their family. And so working closely with the city definitely puts us the ability to direct some of these critical funds to address the deteriorating housing stock and address some of the home inequalities that many of our clients face. And so our application is really to be able to help do some of the repairs for some of these families that just don't have any other way or means to be able to maintain a healthy, safe home.
Do we have any questions?
Could you tell us how much money is in your revolving fund right now?
I don't have that number, Larry, on the top of my head right now, but I believe I don't know that number right now, but I can get that to you.
Any revolving funds are immediately used on like the next project. So I could be wrong, but if there are any funds in the revolving loan fund, they will be spent down before this would be funded. But it will continue to be something that is an asset.
So what specific project is this going to?
This is for Dev Northwest's low-income homeowner rehab program.
So just one home or two homes, or how many homes we're talking about?
Depends on the funding that's been allocated. Typically, the repairs that we're looking at range between $35,000 to $40,000 is what we usually are working with each of these families.
Thank you.
And these are provided in the form of a loan that is not required to be paid back unless the property is sold. Is that correct?
That's correct. We call it a silent second. So there is a lien that gets put on there, depending on the loan and the amounts. There's also oftentimes a small interest rate that occurs. So they're being charged for that. And then there's no monthly payment that is required. And then the only time really they would pay it back is if that home is sold.
If the whole home is sold and has, like, it's fully mortgaged to the hilt and has no equity,
No, we go in and do a preliminary assessment. We're not putting someone underwater. So that we are following certain loan to value ratios that doesn't put the homeowner in that position. So we do tap into that equity, which is what we're doing, but it doesn't put them over that amount.
Got it. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for presenting to us today.
Yep.
And then finally, I will be introducing Brian Steinhauser with Family Connection. Thanks for your patience.
Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for hearing me out. My name is Brian Steinhauser. I'm the business liaison with the Early Learning Hub, Lynn, Benton, Lincoln counties. I'm here to discuss a grant application I submitted in partnership with Family Connections. They are the regional child care resource and referral agency for Lynn, Benton, Lincoln counties. They recruit, onboard, and retain the regulated child care workforce, both center and family-based. In 2023, we developed Growing Care. That is a recruitment program to dramatically increase the number of registered family home-based child care programs in our local community to address the lack of child care availability. Growing Care seeks to license more child care providers, specifically a type of home-based child care provider that can watch up to 10 children and is run by a single owner-operator in their own residence. To overcome the financial hardship involved in starting a new micro-enterprise business, especially in the troubling career field of early child care, Family Connections intends to assist newly licensed providers with access to startup grants, as well as free business training and long-term coaching and mentoring, in the hopes of setting up providers for long-term success. For our 2024 Albany CDBG grant application, we're asking for funds to be used to provide 3 to 10 startup grants ranging from $3,000 to $10,000 apiece to newly licensed Albany registered family providers who qualify as low to moderate income, senior, and disabled. If we cannot recruit sufficient individuals who meet that criteria, we plan to expend the funds as operating cost grants to existing childcare programs, both center and family-based, who would meet the criteria. And then I just want to quickly go over growing care statistics. So we launched the website in August of 2024. Just as a benchmark, in 2022, in all 3 counties, Lynn, Benton, Lincoln County, only 11 new registered family providers were licensed, 8 in Lynn County, 1 in Benton, and 2 in Lincoln. So from August to late December of this, I'm sorry, we actually corrected the dates this morning. So up until from August to now, 41 individuals have contacted Family Connections with an interest in becoming licensed as registered family providers. 19 of them are already in the licensing process. 6 of those individuals are from Albany. An additional 3 existing registered family providers from Albany are already attended the fall Business Accelerator business training class that we launched. And in terms of effectiveness, when we launched the Growing Care website, we were only able to launch the paid marketing campaign for Lincoln County. We actually only launched the paid marketing campaign for Lynn and Benton County last week. So our progress with Albany so far is strictly grassroots support. With the paid marketing campaign that's just started now, it's meant to run until May. We're about to launch a second paid marketing campaign. We're expecting to blow 2022 numbers out of the water. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
So I have a question about cost so you're helping the business get set up. Do you encourage the new business to have lower than market rate for daycare?
Well, generally, because of the tight profit margins involved in their businesses, they really have to be competitive with the overall community. Albany rates are much lower than, say, Corvallis, but they're still usually generally higher than other areas. What we're just trying to do is not have the new providers go into debt.
That makes sense.
Business, yeah.
What is the current rate? Because I know when I moved up here in '94, I think for my son we paid $275 or $250 a month for one child, and then when my daughter came along 3 years later, it was an additional $100 a month.
The average rate for a single child in the state of Albany, or I'm sorry, the state of Oregon, is $10,000 per year.
Holy crap.
Though that varies. I have preschool age twins, and I'm paying $18,000 a year for the both of them. Infant toddler rates are through the roof. Generally, center base is more expensive than home base. Center base rates in Albany will generally go about $1,200 to $1,400 a month per child. Preschool age will lower. It's just math. It's the ratios. The number of infant toddler rates are just you can only watch fewer, whereas more preschool age children you can watch more of them. Family child care, so home-based child care in Albany, I would say the average rates would be between $800 and $1,000 per month.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I was just wondering, with these home-based care centers, or how many kids do they usually take care of or accept? Is there a limit or?
Yes, ma'am. So with registered family, they can watch no more than 10 children. Of those 10, 6 can be preschool age and under. So that's under the age of 5 years old, kindergarten age, school year dependent. And then of those 6, 2 of them can be infant toddler.
Okay, so it's quite a few, but doable. So
Very much doable.
That is great. I'd like to hear that.
Go ahead.
So what is your hope? How many, I didn't see the details. How many you hope to start in Albany?
Well, I mean, Albany, we're going to try to max out as many as we can possibly can. Albany is a hub for childcare in the region. I mean, I live in Lebanon, and we have to commonly use Albany childcare. Everyone else in the area, the average wait list in Corvallis right now is 18 to 24 months. Parents are being recommended to get on a waiting list before they conceive their children. A lot of them are using Albany childcare. All through Lynn, a lot of the resident communities around here are using it. Like Millersburg has 0 regulated childcare right now. There are a significant number of existing childcare is unregulated licenses exempt childcare. So anything 3 children and under, 5 children under from a single family, friends, family, neighbors, that type of thing. We have no real ability to track them. So we can't, but we know just from anecdotal information that there is a severe shortage of childcare in the region. So
Thank you for that education.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right,
Okay.
I'm going to move us
numbers are
along to,
staggering.
thank you very much.
We got to pay for housing, childcare, food, health insurance, regular car insurance.
Okay. Staff, do you have any
I
additional business?
I do. I have some draft goals and actions, but I'm having trouble sharing my screen.
Okay with that.
So if it's okay with you, I will just sort of read through some of these goals and actions. So our first impediment that we had was lack of affordable housing, and the goal that I have is explore options for growing the city's capacity to support the development of long-term affordable housing. The action would be explore potential revenue sources or other city resources for affordable housing, including grants, construction excise tax, surplus property policy, and tax abatement program. And then the second goal for that would be use existing resources to support creating or maintaining affordable housing in Albany. And the action would be to continue to support housing rehabilitation of Albany's older housing stock. And the second action I have is allocate CDBG funds to affordable housing developments if possible. So any thoughts, reflections on those goals and actions? Sorry, it's a mouthful.
Commissioner Johnson?
Beth, I just wondering, I've been thinking about this ever since I started reading and marking the scoring everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. I can't see where housing and is something that we could even address. It's just too expensive now. The childcare, the chance, the things like that. Those are the things that are going to help the community, but not break the bank. I mean, because I don't see how we could do anything with housing.
So is this a CDGB conversation, or is this more just the group providing some input in general, which might go outside of those funds?
Right. So there's sort of 2 components here, right? So we have our main CDBG funding that is used to support low and moderate income residents. But as a part of that funding allocation, HUD requires that we affirmatively further fair housing. So we try to reduce barriers to housing for people that have historically faced more barriers or who haven't had the housing types that suit their needs. And so there is a disconnect between the amount of funding we have to take action on these things, but it's still a requirement of the program. And what I've tried to do with some of these actions is to really leverage the other planning that our department is doing outside of just the CDBG program to address these goals, in addition to thinking about how do we use our funds intentionally to also advance these goals. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
I thought,
So I should have provided that
oh,
context
that's
up
okay.
front.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the commission as an advisor, citizens advisory group, has a role in not only the allocation of these funds, but also the formation of public policy to further, so that other departments and the rest of the community development can forward affordable housing and reduce homelessness, et cetera, right? Is that,
Right.
did I just say
yeah.
the same thing? Just
Yeah, I
restate it?
think
Yeah.
very succinctly, right?
Yeah.
So how do we do this overall, right? Not just in terms of the funding, but how does the city and the planning department take that responsibility to advance fair housing seriously and apply it to our work?
I think it's significant, as you've answered here, this goal and this potential action is to raise additional revenues. We're recommending that the city raise additional revenues. We're recommending that the city perhaps puts forward other fees on development and tax abatement and other things that has real tangible costs to throw at the problem, right?
So it seems like that's interesting because there's two pieces to that. And one of them is raising more funds, which is always going to be hard because, like Bessie pointed out, this is really expensive stuff. But the tax abatement seems like that could be something we could propose or suggest be looked at. So, for example, whether it's tax incentives, which is done for business all the time to draw businesses to an area, or city fees can be maybe reduced for certain types of housing if you're building studio apartments and things like that. Are those kinds of recommendations that we could suggest then that would go into the process?
Yeah, so I think that first action really is encompassing that. It's really exploring what are those options. And some of those things have been identified as through our housing implementation plan that we're going to be trying to move forward. What are the actions out of this plan that the city's ready to take on now, and then also exploring what are those long-term policy questions that the city, so that includes, like you said, kind of the tax abatement program and how can we potentially restructure that so it's a little bit easier and more beneficial to affordable housing developments, and then also some of the deeper policy questions around like the construction excise tax.
We've discussed during the Housing Affordability Task Force,
Mhm.
construction excise tax, elimination of system development charges for building of affordable or low-income housing. So those are all on the table.
Right.
It's just a matter of getting down the path so we can have those discussions.
And trying to figure out which of these options are the best fits for the city.
So the city has surplus property, land that could be even given to proper development projects, for instance. Is there do we make that could that be made available to the commission as an example, like a list or a map of those sorts of things, so that we get an idea? I'm just hearing it's not very much, but it'd be good to
It's good
understand.
to know. At least good to know the inventory.
Yeah.
Sure, we could provide a map or a resource that shows what the surplus properties are.
Great. Thank you.
There really aren't very many surplus properties. Yep.
What I've heard from my right.
We've been through this a lot, yeah.
Another thought is to identify redevelopment areas that are suitable for new LMI housing construction.
Well, I do know the governor has given some direction, or at least proposed direction to like encouraging expansion for some communities, the urban growth boundary to build affordable housing. I don't think we have that problem inside the urban growth boundary. We have plenty inside the boundary.
That's what I'm talking about. Redevelopment, I think there's potential parts of the city.
I think one of the challenges is that unless we're going to be the one that develops it, there's sometimes, what's the next step? If we've identified the area, is we still need that external party to then take advantage of that. But we can certainly add that to the list of actions of where does it make sense to concentrate some
Does the
effort.
city have a redevelopment authority?
Sorry, can you speak into the microphone, because we really can't
That's
hear.
an question.
Yeah, does the city have a redevelopment authority?
Can you speak in the microphone and start from the beginning, because we can't get it on the minutes and I couldn't hear what you said.
Okay. Does the city have a redevelopment authority?
No, well, we have an urban renewal agency that just is a very focused area, and they're kind of near the end of that cycle. So what the city has been doing is figuring out ways to remove obstacles to housing development and allowing more variety of housing. You'll see in housing choices, increasing the variety of housing choices. Not everyone can afford a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that is, 1,800 square feet and $450,000. So we've been incrementally, we allow middle housing, accessory dwelling units. We're looking at modifying some of the development standards so that that would encourage redevelopment where the market, the property or the land values would work. So we're trying to remove obstacles for redevelopment, and along with a lot of other tools to encourage redevelopment in areas that maybe are ready to be redeveloped. The market really ends up doing that, but concentrating funds in a specific area is typically done through urban renewal districts. And right now we only have one, and it encompasses our oldest area of the city, but the program has not really been addressing housing issues necessarily. I mean, we are looking at increasing, again, types of housing, density, et cetera, in these urban core areas, and also newer areas around the city through our climate friendly and equitable communities work. So, it's not just adding more housing units, but in locations that are accessible to jobs and schools and all that. So,
Yeah, and also the idea of mixed use housing where you've got
we've already,
commercial and residential together and so forth.
yeah, we do allow, I mean, there are quite a few mixed use zones. We're looking at expanding that a little bit so that it's not in certain areas around town where it makes sense for transportation and access. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, other questions or comments on that?
Seemed like a good transition, to lack of housing choice, because Anne was just mentioning the climate-friendly areas. So for lack of housing choice, the goal that I have is amend the Albany Development Code to allow a greater variety of housing types and sizes across the city. And the actions are to pursue strategies outlined in our housing implementation plan to reduce barriers to the development of needed housing types, including small houses, single occupancy, middle housing, and accessible housing. And then the second action I have is leverage the climate-friendly and equitable communities requirements to allow more housing density and diversity in key areas of the city.
The new ones that are being shipped to you for like $20,000, you can buy a house literally on Amazon that gets shipped to you and pops out for like 20 grand. Is that something that's being addressed in these, or?
Well, I mean, how it's constructed, where it's constructed doesn't really come into play unless it's related to the building code. So we do allow accessory dwelling units, but do we allow multiple small houses on a lot? Yes, we do, through different middle housing types. So again, we're trying to ensure that we're allowing all the types of housing that are currently in demand, and especially that are needed for addressing our low and moderate income housing needs. So we are doing that. There may be some obstacles with the building code for what you've described, but the governor is really sort of doing a comprehensive look at all of the potential obstacles to more variety of housing types that can get on the ground quickly. So, which may include the building code.
Can you include apartments in the wording? I don't know what you say, middle housing. I don't know what middle housing is.
Middle housing is like duplexes, triplexes, townhouses, and cottage clusters.
Fourplexes.
Fourplexes, yeah. So things that are in between apartments and single, single dwelling units.
Is that commonly understood what middle housing means, or do you need to be?
We can be more specific if you'd like. We're working on our plain language standards, so actually that's a great call out that we want to be clear with what that means. And then you'd like to add apartments as well.
I think any type of housing that could be lower moderate income, and of course apartments are included in that. But middle housing, it's statewide. It's becoming a national thing. So historically, zoning was sort of single detached dwelling units, single family homes, and then apartments, and very little in between has been built for decades and decades. So across the country, we're trying to remove those barriers. Yeah.
Which is part of the overall overarching problem. We focus on single family and apartments and nothing in between.
Right.
And so, and also this is something about Oregon you got to remember, is that Oregon doesn't want sprawl and does not like density. So that's something to think about. We got to get closer and higher, or people are going to leave. It's just reality of it, because we're going to price young couples out. I bought my first house, 4-bedroom, 1,600 square foot with a carport in San Diego for $130,000. That was in 92. And so that same house is on Zillow right now for like $485,000. You know, so we have to build more places to stay in the discussion.
So on this particular topic, so everything we've talked about has been increasing the kind of the housing availability in different areas, right? And that's clearly the thing that needs to be done. But is there any thought to complementary strategies like making the housing clusters, the local LMI housing that's in kind of non-optimal areas more livable by providing like transportation options or attracting businesses in that would provide jobs locally, similar to the CFEC stuff? Because I noticed that one of the examples that you gave from another city was them doing exactly that. They said, hey, we're providing transportation vouchers and stuff so that at least in the short term, these areas aren't quite so segregated. Is there any thought to that?
In the past, I've talked to our, well, first of all, transportation network is, it could be improved. We're still in early infancy, one bus an hour and only goes one way around. There are a couple of routes, but I have talked to the transportation folks about what, would they want to apply for CDBG funds for vouchers for ridership? And in the past, they haven't pursued that, but of course, making everything accessible. Call a ride, I think, is free and easier for low-income residents to access and use. And the city may or may not be pursuing that, but yeah, we're looking at all across the spectrum: transportation, land use, housing, jobs. This group is, and this is what's great about the Community Development Block Grant Program. It is pretty comprehensive. We just don't get a lot of money to make much movement in very many areas, right? So
I would say that also that is a potential thought process of let's not just invest in allowing people more choice throughout the city, but how do we invest in key areas that maybe have a higher proportion of low and moderate income residents. I'm not sure that really relates specifically to this lack of housing choice impediment, but I do think that if the commission wanted to have a goal around also putting investment towards low and moderate income neighborhoods to improve the facilities and amenities that are in those areas, we could do that. I think if you look back at our program over the years, one way that we've done that is through investing in parks that are in low and moderate income areas so that people that are living there also have access to high quality parks that have the same features as anywhere else in the city. Not the same, but comparable, right? So that is an option. I'm just not sure that it falls in this category. So the next impediment that we had was lack of understanding of fair housing laws and resources. And the goal that I have is reduce discriminatory practices in the housing market. And the actions are to work with the Fair Housing Council of Oregon, Legal Aid, and renter and realtor associations to provide training to landlords, property managers, shelter providers, and agency staff about fair housing laws and resources. And then also to include training for elected and appointed officials to increase awareness about policy and decision makers so that they can avoid making decisions that may have unintended impacts. So that really does go back to that affirmatively furthering fair housing, which is a mouthful, but it's not, it's being intentional about how we use our policy to advance fair housing and not hoping that our policy has that effect without thinking that through. And so giving some training about how decisions can have unintended impacts can help our policymakers be aware of that as they are making decisions. And then also to market the resources and information that's available on our social media.
I think those are for the tenant. There's another impediment that'll talk about that, but we're really also trying to make residents aware of their rights as tenants. And we've tried to do some training on that front. It's a little challenging to get people to attend those, but that would also be something. It's under the next impediment, but overall, just making sure more people understand that their actions could have an impact on fair housing choice.
So then the final impediment that we have is cultural and linguistic barriers. And so the goal is to reduce cultural, linguistic and/or cultural barriers to fair housing information, to social services, and to CDBG program information. And the actions we would take would be to continue building partnerships with agencies that serve Hispanic and Latino community, residents with disabilities, and seniors, and provide guidance on how to remove barriers, and any agencies that provide guidance on how to remove barriers to housing and access resources. And then also work with the Fair Housing Council of Oregon and Legal Aid and local partners to provide that training for residents. So the first one's kind of focused on housing providers, and the second, that this action is more focused on housing consumers. And then another potential action would be to ask future CDBG applicants how they're ensuring that their services are accessible to non-English speakers or people that have other cultural needs. And I think that this impediment also has the potential, if we want to think about access beyond just cultural and linguistic, this might be a good place to think about also disability and enrollment processes, and not just physical disabilities, but also cognitive disabilities or neurodivergent, and how services are provided in such a way that they're easy to access for everyone. But that's just a thought that I had. That's not not something that's been discussed by the group.
I think that's a good thought to include those categories that you just described. Yeah.
One thought along that is there any type of free like English training? I mean, in a perfect world, it'd be nice if, every business, every office was bilingual. Obviously, that's not realistic financially. Is there any programs right now to help them?
There's an agency, Casa Latinos Unidos, that really helps our Spanish-speaking population with access to all sorts of services. I know that websites, I mean, if you're just as an example, Spanish-speaking person, you can have your website set to show up in Spanish. But I do think that, encouraging agencies to ensure that if they're serving, minority populations, that they may have bilingual speakers on staff, for example, and have their most frequent applications translated, et cetera. We were trying to work with that, but there is an organization that works in our 2-county area and serves a lot of Albany residents. The school district also has a whole center that works to support some of the minority population, the Welcome Center.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, staff. The next item on the agenda then is business from the public. Do we have any public registered to speak, or did they give us anything? No? Okay. Business from the commission. Anything from individual commissioners they would like to bring forward at this time?
One question I did want to ask the commission is, do you guys have a preference about meeting in this room or meeting in the room upstairs, the Santiam room, long term?
Well, the thought I have is obviously this room is better if we're going to get presentations from anybody else, but if we're just having discussion among ourselves, I think it's easier when we're at a smaller table.
Okay.
I agree with that.
I agree as well.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. So when there's no presentations, we'll continue meeting upstairs.
Good. There is a commissioner training, annual commissioner training event coming, isn't there?
Yes, there is on February 15th, I believe.
February 15th. And that is that both online and in person, or is it?
I believe it's just in person.
There are 2 different time slots, though. I can't remember what they are, but we could send a reminder out to this group, Beth or Caitlin. I was going to just double check. So the next meeting, February 19th, is a holiday for some people. School's going to be in session. We need to make sure we have a quorum and as many of you as possible, because it's a really important meeting. I just wanted to find out now if that was a problem for any of you, if you're off and on vacation or whatever. But you can just let us know and look at your calendars. We just want to make sure that we have a quorum, of course, but also full attendance if possible.
Same time, noon?
That one's a
That,
February 19th at noon.
noon. Okay.
It's listed as in here, so are we having anyone presenting or?
No, I think, well, it could be a room availability. I don't know. We usually would meet up in the Sandy Am room.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So. I'm sorry, what's that?
Oh, I was just letting know, I may or may not be able to attend
Oh.
if it's at noon.
Yeah, okay, so we have the training on the 15th and our next meeting date is February 19th, probably upstairs. And that's it. I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 1:19 p.m. Thank you for your attendance.